What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a found footage film that is a few years older now. I think this thing's about 11 years old. And I saw some people discussing it online. I didn't really know anything about it at all, other than reading a few positive reviews. And fall is approaching. Halloween's going to be here before you know it. And as most of you know, I'm a huge horror movie fan, and I love the found footage genre. And I'm always trying to look for new found footage films to add into my catalog of my favorites. And I read a lot of really great reviews for this movie and was looking forward to checking it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Leaving DC. Leaving DC is directed by Josh Criss. After 20 years of living in Washington, D.C., Mark Klein seeks much needed solace by moving to the remote wilds of West Virginia. To ease his loneliness, he sends regular video updates to members of his OCD-support group back in the city. Mark gradually realizes that despite his new isolated setting, he may not be alone. From the endless woods surrounding his home, something else is watching. So I was really excited to check this movie out, and I enjoyed this movie. I will say it's not perfect, it's a little rough around the edges, and I was not a huge fan of the ending. But there is a lot to like about this movie, and I think for how low budget it is, it's incredibly effective at creating that eerie, ominous tone and making you as the viewer question every few minutes what's going to happen next. And that's what really impressed me the most about the movie, and I'm excited to tell you about it today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Mark Klein, who is played by the director, Josh Criss. We see him recording these empty roads in the middle of the night that he's driving on, and he's talking to the camera. And we learn shortly after that he worked in Washington, D.C., and he's part of this OCD support group. And he was getting incredibly overwhelmed by the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life. The crowded streets, the traffic, it was causing him to feel very uncomfortable. And so he looked online and he managed to find this house in West Virginia that's literally in the middle of nowhere. The closest town is 35 minutes away. And he thinks that this is going to be the perfect reset for his life. And every day he's making these video updates and sending them to his OCD support group because that was the closest group of friends that he had. And he's out exploring one day and he finds this really weird cat skull attached to a tree in the middle of the woods. And after finding that, every night he starts hearing really weird noises outside of his home. So he starts sending videos to his support group being like, hey, this is really strange, this is really weird. And he records the sounds every night and eventually buys a camera that takes snapshot photographs of animals and wildlife running around at night, hoping to see what's happening outside of his house. And the entirety of the film is Mark trying to figure out who is terrorizing and pestering him when he lives in the middle of nowhere, 15 to 20 minutes away from the nearest house. So like I said, I really enjoyed this movie, despite the fact I think it's a little rough around the edges. For starters, Josh's performance as Mark, I think he's really easy to watch. He does a really great job at holding your attention, just playing a guy. I think after a while, I forgot that I was watching a movie. It just felt like I was watching a guy recording his day-to-day life in these events. And that's my favorite type of found footage movie, is when it feels natural. And you could kind of see the excitement that he had getting away from the big city and trying to change his life around, and how it slowly starts to deteriorate him mentally when things get worse and worse and worse. I like the setting of the movie, this house in the middle of nowhere. It's a nicer house. It looks like a remodel or something. It looks like a really nice house, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and you get that peaceful, serene vibe, but the more things get creepy, it's like there's no comfort left. The house doesn't feel comfortable. It just feels eerie and ominous, and I love how that sort of shifts as you watch the movie. And what I like about this movie is it's not laden with jump scares. There's not a single jump scare in the entire movie. It's so much more about building up tension by what you hear and what you see on camera, not just like something jumping out at you, but forcing you to stare at something or listen to something. And I really liked the way that they utilized sound in this movie, because so much more of what scares you is through the sound in this and these sound recordings that he takes every single night. And I like that. It's like it's a limited budget movie. You're trying to make something that's effective, and I feel like he's utilizing what is at his disposal here to create an impactful and effective effective film. I love the way it ramps up towards the third act. It just feels like communication he's having with outsiders and certain things really let your mind wander as to where this movie is going to go. And I liked that a lot about it. I will say some of the sequences with listening to the audio recordings, they get a little bit repetitive, especially early on when he's like cycling through the hours. And I'm sure in his mind, it's a way to build up tension and suspense. And eventually he gets to a point where he's like, okay, this is the only thing that happens. And I think he could have cut to that a little bit earlier on in the movie, but I get you're trying to pad out a runtime. This is only like an hour and 17 minutes long. And so you're trying to make the most of the time that you have. So I get that. I did not like the ending of this movie. I felt like he did such an amazing job building up that tension and suspense, all for it to have really the most formulaic and cliche ending to a film that you could have. He tries to add some tension with one of the OCD members coming to visit him, and like they're having this relationship, but I feel like it's all a little too glazed over for it to really sit with you. I wasn't really concerned with all that, and more just thinking about how he's going to approach this and whether he's going to leave or he's going to try to stay determined and stay at this house and not let it get to him. And I feel like that was just added in to add some different type of angle, and it wasn't horrible or anything. I just wasn't as concerned with it. And like I said, that he adds all these little things in the third act that you think are going to be utilized more towards the end, like adding these sensors into his house when doors open and closed, and the idea of this like siren going off if someone breaks in. But the ending is very anticlimactic. I feel like it ends the way a lot of found footage horror films do. And so I was a little bit unsatisfied because of the ending. But I feel like I really love the tension and everything building up to that point. I just wish there was a more clear and concise ending instead of the ending that we get in 8 out of 10 of these found footage movies. So have you seen Leaving DC? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie had a really great build up. Love the tension and suspense. I thought our lead actor slash director did a really nice job, but I was really unsatisfied with the ending. I feel like it could have gone an entirely different direction. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.